Please subscribe, like and share this video. Thank you for your support.
2 U.S. Code Chapter 30, Operation and Maintenance of Capital Complex. 2 U.S. Code Subchapter 7, Other Entities and Services. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 2162, Capital Power Plant. A. Designation that heating, lighting, and power plant constructed under the terms of the Act approved April 28, 1904, 33 Stat. 479, Chapter 1762 shall be known as the Capital Power Plant. B. Definition in this section. The term carbon dioxide energy efficiency means the quantity of electricity used to power equipment for carbon dioxide capture and storage or use. C. Feasibility study. The architect of the capital shall conduct a feasibility study evaluating the available methods to capture, store, and use carbon dioxide emitted from the capital power plant as a result of burning fossil fuels. In carrying out the feasibility study, the architect of the capital is encouraged to consult with individuals with expertise in carbon capture and storage or use, including experts with the Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Energy, academic institutions, non-profit organizations, and industry, as appropriate. The study shall consider 1. The availability of technologies to capture and store or use capital power plant carbon dioxide emissions, 2. Strategies to conserve energy and reduce carbon dioxide emissions at the capital power plant, and 3. Other factors as determined by the architect of the capital. D. Demonstration projects. 1. In general, if the feasibility study determines that a demonstration project to capture and store or use capital power plant carbon dioxide emissions is technologically feasible and economically justified, including direct and indirect economic and environmental benefits, the architect of the capital may conduct one or more demonstration projects to capture and store or use carbon dioxide emitted from the capital power plant as a result of burning fossil fuels. 2. Factors for consideration in carrying out such demonstration projects. The architect of the capital shall consider a. The amount of capital power plant carbon dioxide emissions to be captured and stored or used. B. Whether the proposed project is able to reduce air pollutants other than carbon dioxide. C. The carbon dioxide energy efficiency of the proposed project. D. Whether the proposed project is able to use carbon dioxide emissions. E. Whether the proposed project could be expanded to significantly increase the amount of capital power plant carbon dioxide emissions to be captured and stored or used. F. The potential environmental, energy, and educational benefits of demonstrating the capture and storage or use of carbon dioxide at the U.S. Capitol, and G. Other factors as determined by the architect of the Capitol. 3. Terms and conditions. A demonstration project funded under this section shall be subject to such terms and conditions as the architect of the Capitol may prescribe. E. Authorization of appropriations. There is authorized to be appropriated to carry out the feasibility study and demonstration project $3 million. Such sums shall remain available until expended. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 2162a, Promoting Maximum Efficiency in Operation of Capital Power Plant. A. Steam boilers. 1. In general, the architect of the capital shall take such steps as may be necessary to operate the steam boilers at the capital power plant in the most energy-efficient manner possible to minimize carbon emissions and operating costs, including adjusting steam pressures and adjusting the operation of the boilers to take into account variations in demand, including seasonality, for the use of the system. 2. Effective date. The architect shall implement the steps required under paragraph 1 not later than 30 days after December 19, 2007. B. Chiller plant. 1. In general, the architect of the capital shall take such steps as may be necessary to operate the chiller plant at the capital power plant in the most energy-efficient manner possible to minimize carbon emissions and operating costs, including adjusting water temperatures and adjusting the operation of the chillers to take into account variations in demand, including seasonality, for the use of the system. 2. Effective date. The architect shall implement the steps required under paragraph 1 not later than 30 days after December 19, 2007. C. Meters. Not later than 90 days after December 19, 2007, the architect of the capital shall evaluate the accuracy of the meters in use at the capital power plant and correct them as necessary. D. Report on implementation. Not later than 180 days after December 19, 2007, the architect of the capital shall complete the implementation of the requirements of this section and submit a report describing the actions taken and the energy efficiencies achieved to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure of the House of Representatives, the Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation of the Senate, the Committee on House Administration of the House of Representatives, and the Committee on Rules and Administration of the Senate. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 2163, Capitol Ground Shuttle Service. Funds appropriated for any available account of the architect of the capital after October 1, 1976, shall be available for the purchase or rental, maintenance and operation of passenger motor vehicles to provide shuttle service for members and employees of Congress to and from the buildings in the legislative group. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 2164, Transportation of House pages by Capitol Ground Shuttle Service. The passenger motor vehicles authorized by Section 2163 of this title to provide a shuttle service for members and employees of Congress may be used for the transportation of House pages to and from special events associated with their education when approved by the House of Representatives Page Board. Provided further, that the use of the said passenger motor vehicles for transportation of House pages shall not interfere with the shuttle service for members and employees of the Congress. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 2167, Congressional Award Youth Park. A. Designation: the parcel of approximately 5 acres of land located on the Capitol grounds and described in subsection B shall be known and designated as the Congressional Award Youth Park. B. Area included: 1. In general, the parcel of land described in subsection A is A. Bounded on the north by Constitution Avenue, and W. B. Bounded on the east by 1st Street, and W. C. Bounded on the south by Pennsylvania Avenue, and W. And D. Bounded on the west by 3rd Street and W. 2. Extension: the park shall extend to the curbs of the streets described in paragraph 1. C. Design: 1. Competition: the architect of the Capitol shall sponsor a competition for the design of the park, based on specifications developed by the architect. 2. Specifications: A. In general, not later than June 30, 2002, the architect, in consultation with the Majority Leader and the Minority Leader of the Senate, and the Speaker and the Minority Leader of the House of Representatives, shall develop the specifications for the park. B. Requirements: I. In general, the specifications shall require an outdoor design that is accessible to the public. 2. Inclusions: to the maximum extent practicable, the specifications shall include requirements for I. A fountain, 2. Extensive use of trees and flowering plants from each of the 50 states, 3. Large-scale replicas of the medals awarded under the Congressional Award Program, and IV. The inscription of the names of all Congressional Award recipients. 3. Selection: A. In general, as soon as practicable after the competition is completed, the architect shall forward at least 3 designs, with recommendations, to the United States Capitol Preservation Commission. B. Final selection: the United States Capitol Preservation Commission shall select and approve the final design from among the 3 designs submitted under subparagraph A. D. Funding: funds otherwise made available to the architect of the Capitol under this Act shall be available to carry out this section. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 2168, Memorandum of Understanding for Provision of Services of the United States Capitol Telephone Exchange for the House. A. In general, the Chief Administrative Officer of the House of Representatives and the Sergeant-at-Arms and Doorkeeper of the Senate may enter into a Memorandum of Understanding under which the Sergeant-at-Arms and Doorkeeper shall provide all services of the United States Capitol Telephone Exchange for the House of Representatives, in accordance with such terms and conditions as may be provided in the Memorandum of Understanding. B. Transfer of positions and personnel for any period during which a Memorandum of Understanding is in effect pursuant to this section. 1. All positions in the United States Capitol Telephone Exchange for which the employing authority is the Chief Administrative Officer shall be transferred to the Sergeant-at-Arms and Doorkeeper. 2. All employees in the United States Capitol Telephone Exchange for whom the employing authority is the Chief Administrative Officer shall be transferred to, and appointed by, the Sergeant-at-Arms and Doorkeeper. And 3. The Sergeant-at-Arms and Doorkeeper shall serve as the employing authority for all personnel of the United States Capitol Telephone Exchange. C. Pay and leave accrual in carrying out a Memorandum of Understanding pursuant to this section. The Sergeant-at-Arms and Doorkeeper shall ensure that, with respect to any employee of the United States Capitol Telephone Exchange whose employing authority prior to the effective date of the memorandum was the Chief Administrative Officer, 1. The rate of pay and leave accrual for the employee shall not be less than the employee's rate of pay and leave accrual for the most recent pay period prior to such date, unless A. The employee does not remain in the same position with the exchange, or B. The rate of pay or leave accrual is reduced for cause, and 2. Any leave accrued by the employee that remains unused as of such date shall be transferred to the employee and made available for the employee to use under the same terms and conditions that applied to the use of the leave prior to such date. D. Omitted. E. Reimbursement of expenses by House. 1. A Memorandum of Understanding under this section may include a provision requiring the reimbursement by the House of Representatives during a fiscal year, paid out of the applicable accounts of the House, of the expenses incurred by the Sergeant-at-Arms and Doorkeeper during the fiscal year in carrying out the memorandum with respect to the employees of the United States Capitol Telephone Exchange whose employing authority prior to the effective date of the memorandum was the Chief Administrative Officer. 2. Any reimbursement made pursuant to this subsection, A. In the case of a reimbursement for salaries or agency contributions and related expenses, shall be deposited in the account under the heading, Office of the Sergeant-at-Arms and Doorkeeper, or Agency Contributions and Related Expenses, under the heading, Salaries, Officers and Employees, and B. In the case of a reimbursement for expenses, shall be deposited in the account under the heading, Sergeant-at-Arms and Doorkeeper of the Senate, under the heading, Contingent Expenses of the Senate. 3. Any funds deposited under paragraph 2 shall be available in like manner and for the same purposes as are other funds in the account to which the funds were deposited. F. Effective date. This section and the amendment made by this section shall apply with respect to fiscal year 2005 and each succeeding fiscal year. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 2169, Capitol Complex E85 Refueling Station. A. Construction. The architect of the Capitol may construct a fuel tank and pumping system for E85 fuel at or within close proximity to the Capitol grounds fuel station. B. Use the E85 fuel tank and pumping system shall be available for use by all legislative branch vehicles capable of operating with E85 fuel, subject to such other legislative branch agencies reimbursing the architect of the Capitol for the costs of E85 fuel used by such other legislative branch vehicles. C. Authorization of appropriations. There is authorized to be appropriated to carry out this section $640,000 for fiscal year 2008. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 2170, Battery recharging stations for privately owned vehicles in parking areas under the jurisdiction of the Senate at no net cost to the federal government. A. Definition. In this section, the term covered employee means 1. An employee whose pay is disbursed by the Secretary of the Senate, or 2. Any other individual who is authorized to park in any parking area under the jurisdiction of the Senate on Capitol grounds. B. Authority. 1. In general, subject to paragraph 3, funds appropriated to the architect of the Capitol under the heading Capitol Power Plant under the heading Architect of the Capitol in any fiscal year are available to construct, operate, and maintain on a reimbursable basis battery recharging stations in parking areas under the jurisdiction of the Senate on Capitol grounds for use by privately owned vehicles used by senators or covered employees. 2. Vendors authorized in carrying out paragraph 1, the architect of the Capitol may use one or more vendors on a commission basis. 3. Approval of construction. The architect of the Capitol may construct or direct the construction of battery recharging stations described under paragraph 1 after a. Submission of written notice detailing the numbers and locations of the battery recharging stations to the Committee on Rules and Administration of the Senate, and b. Approval by that committee. C. Fees and charges. 1. In general, subject to paragraph 2, the architect of the Capitol shall charge fees or charges for electricity provided to senators and covered employees sufficient to cover the costs to the architect of the Capitol to carry out this section, including cost to any vendors or other costs associated with maintaining the battery recharging stations. 2. Approval of fees or charges. The architect of the Capitol may establish and adjust fees or charges under paragraph 1 after a. Submission of written notice detailing the amount of the fee or charge to be established or adjusted to the Committee on Rules and Administration of the Senate, and b. Approval by that committee. D. Deposit and availability of fees, charges, and commissions. Any fees, charges, or commissions collected by the architect of the Capitol under this section shall be 1. Deposited in the Treasury to the credit of the appropriations account described under subsection B, and 2. Available for obligation without further appropriation during a. the fiscal year collected, and b. the fiscal year following the fiscal year collected. E. Reports. 1. In general, not later than 30 days after the end of each fiscal year, the architect of the Capitol shall submit a report on the financial administration and cost recovery of activities under this section with respect to that fiscal year to the Committee on Rules and Administration of the Senate. 2. Avoiding subsidy. A. Determination not later than 3 years after August 10, 2012, and every 3 years thereafter, the architect of the Capitol shall submit a report to the Committee on Rules and Administration of the Senate determining whether senators and covered employees using battery charging stations as authorized by this section are receiving a subsidy from the taxpayers. B. Modification of rates and fees. If a determination is made under subparagraph A that a subsidy is being received, the architect of the Capitol shall submit a plan to the Committee on Rules and Administration of the Senate on how to update the program to ensure no subsidy is being received. If the committee does not act on the plan within 60 days, the architect of the Capitol shall take appropriate steps to increase rates or fees to ensure reimbursement for the cost of the program consistent with an appropriate schedule for amortization to be charged to those using the charging stations. F. Effective date. This section shall apply with respect to fiscal year 2011 and each fiscal year thereafter.